Hello everyone, on Feigin Live. It is 10 p.m. in Kiev, the same time as in Moscow. It is Wednesday, 21st of April, and we're doing another cast with Alexey Arestovych. Glad to have you here. Yes, hello. We have over 100,000 people watching. You all know what to do to make sure more people see us. Like and subscribe. If you're watching in English, do that in a privateer station. Help us promote the data. What can we say about these 3 days after the offensive of Russian army? We can say that Russian army is trying. They're really trying to do what they were taught in the academies. But Russian army has four enemies. First, it's their political leadership. Second is the operation command. And then two more enemies, roads and fools. Yeah, right, and fools showing the roads. So, Ukrainian army is trying to meet Russian army proper, but they're still somewhere en route. At the moment, this whole story really moved over to the field of information operations. So those people who are discussing that in Russia, they already took Rubezhne, they advanced somewhere. They will destroy Azovstal for the 150th time. It's even hard to mention all the things they claim they have done, but in reality, there's really no advancement. They're still using artillery and aviation on us. We're doing the same back on them, but there's really no progress on the battlefield. So, they would not be too bored with their advancement. We're freeing some villages on the left. One of the funny things in Kherson area, we have more troops there, but they still try to advance. And our troops are observing them attacking our machine guns, and it ends up in the same way every time. All right, say our troops and continue shooting. And the field is fertilized with more enemy troops, because they're being pushed, I guess, by their government and their military command to continue attacking. So, what are they saying? Is there any military reason for that? No, they're probably, the only thing we can judge that by is that they're advancing in other parts or trying to, so you also have to, even though you don't have a numerical advantage in that area. So, if we try to gauge it, in distance, how far have they advanced from 3 days ago to today? What is it? Is it kilometer? 10 kilometers? Maybe 5 kilometers near Gulay-Pole? Near Izum, maybe a kilometer in some places. But that's not even touching our troops. It's literally scouting and searching for any ways to advance anywhere. That's the trouble if you want to say something about this advancement, but there's nothing to say. I can say that we've destroyed some of their artillery batteries on our side. Of course, our army is not too happy there. They're getting hit by aviation. In terms of firepower and support, the enemy has advantage over us. So it's not easy for our troops, but we're still holding. So what do you think is their idea for the defensive? Oh, the idea is pretty simple. Penetrate our defense, get to Slavyansk, get to Kramatorsk, climb the Karachum mountain that controls the neighborhood, perhaps get to Barvinkova a little further, and in the south capture Gulay Pole, and maybe push a little towards Zaporozhye. But there is a good Russian saying.
The report was smooth on paper, but they completely forgot about ravines,
which are really difficult to walk on. It's basically little pathways in the forest. I've been there a few years ago. There are rivers, the broken bridges. You can't really move sideways from the little pathway in that forest. So what does traditional Russian army do? They send 25,000 people. That reserve that they gathered, the reserve they had yet from the beginning, and they're trying to push them through that area. It's really hard to move to the left or to the right. Our warfighters know the area real well, and they know where to catch them and shoot them. It reminds of the situation near Kiev, when they cluttered all the pathways with the troops to try to attack Kiev. Remember that huge column, 62 kilometers? So you can kind of shoot anywhere on that road and you for sure will hit some of them. Here it's a little different, but it's very similar. They're not in one big column, but there's a bit of a distance between them, but it's still group after group after group, and they're trying to realize their numerical advantage in very tiny pathways.
It's not a field where you can spread your force en masse. It's really small roads in the forest.
It's a very confusing story, frankly speaking. I'm trying to understand Russian command, but perhaps they decided to finish this war by a method of evaporating of their army. So when they get an order from Putin to continue advancing, they at some point report we have nothing to advance with. Because it's complete craziness from the military point of view. You know, if there was a serious plan behind it, supported by military technical, the advancement would have probably been much stronger. They do have some of it. Problem is, this operation is literally a political task. The problem is that in the conditions they're facing, with the resources they have, that is not enough. There is no solution to that. So they were told to fight, and they're fighting. All right. We are 8 minutes live, 250,000 watching us live. Mariupol, we cannot miss that. It's a heavy drama. We've seen some information that Podolyak and Arachami are ready to come to Mariupol and conduct negotiations with the Russian side to provide for the green corridor for people to evacuate from the city. So that thesis about the third party, third country,
maybe Turkey,
which would be logical because they did try to suggest that they can bring some transport and take people out. Is there a chance to come to some solution? You know, there were so many offers on Mariupol. I think this one is like 110th offer. Russian side is refusing, right? Yes, Russian side refuses. Today they had a corridor agreed, and sometimes it's being cancelled because of the evil intention, sometimes because of stupidity of people on the ground. we're working to see if we can still pull something through. So the variants are not, you're not done with variants. No, we're not. And after the war, I'll tell you more. I know my mind is pretty creative, but sometimes the combinations we are trying exceed even my capacity. It's rather amazing. So we're trying everything we can. You understand, people do want to hear that you still keep trying and nobody's forgotten there. All right. Today, somebody mentioned that in the interview. I heard from one of my interviewees that you did mention that Americans actually are supplying air power, so Moscow will not have advantage in the air as they had before. That's not exactly what I said. I said that the amount of vehicles, amount of airplanes in the Ukrainian military will increase. Will it translate into the advantage in the air? We'll see. This all is not a simple procedure. So when you get all that, what will it change in the tactical point? Well, it's difficult to judge when you don't know how many airplanes are being received by Ukraine. We know how many, but we cannot discuss it here. I can already say that Russia is not really using much airplane power. They barely do that in the direct line of contact between their military and us on the Eastern Front, and they do not go deeper than 20 miles just on the Eastern Front and Mariupol. And they're not really doing any other attacks but shooting their... So the planes themselves do not drop bombs, yeah, as I said, only on the Eastern Front and Mariupol. Today we shot down one plane, one chopper, couple of aerial vehicles and cruise missiles. So that's what has happening up to yesterday. As for this morning, let me check. So on the east, we stopped 10 attacks, destroyed 12 tanks, 28 other pieces of armored vehicles, artillery systems, 9 air targets, 1 helicopter, 1 plane, 1 UAV, and some other missiles. So over a day we destroyed a tank detachment, about 600 infantry with equipment. So half a battalion they lose during a day. 25,000 is roughly 30 battle tactical groups. We perhaps take from half to 1 group a day. That likely will last them to about 2 weeks, maybe a little less. They might bring another 10,000 from Kupinsk to help, so probably about 2 weeks. What about the equipment on the Russian side? We hear from different sources that they don't have T-90. Everything is destroyed. Not all of them, but they do have some. But many of them are gone. So America says they have 76 battle tactical groups, Russian battle tactical groups in Ukraine. About 30 of them are gone or non-existent. About 40 are still in the direction. They're somewhat well equipped. They have T-90s and Panzers, protective vehicles. The problem is that they're beaten up and they're tired. So these are the ones that partly taken off from the northern directions, from Kharkov and Sumy, so they're not really on fire to go fighting. They rely on very careful tactics and massive fire support. So it's the war of very tired opponents. What can you say by the 9th of May? Last time we talked about that too. What can they do at max? And what can they get in a minimal way? Super maximum, ideal version for them. If Ukrainian army is dumb, blind, and stupid, then they can maybe encircle our troops near Barvinkovo. Kind of hard to show on a map, but several tens of kilometers, maybe encircle a couple of our tactical battle groups, and they might try to destroy them. And maybe they capture Mariupol, who are still resisting there. Azov, Marines. By the way, Azov went to the port to support police and guards who were defending there, who were running out of ammo. And they supported them there. This is not the problem. The other side is saying that Mariupol is ready to be given up. No, these operations are not done by people who are ready to give up. I would say the main problem of Mariupol is civilians who are still there. They actually bind us a bit in our action. Without them, we can probably hold it for another half a year. So that's the best version for what can happen with the Russian army. Minimal version, Russian army did not advance anywhere. They wasted their battle potential. They are basically standing and defending where they are now, and we're shooting them. Special forces sneaking around them and destroying them a bit, and maybe getting to them from Kharkov to cut off their support lines, and maybe say good evening, we're from Ukraine, and maybe even do some counterattacks on the flanks, what the Germans did in 43. That's where Russian Soviet army back in the day
got surrounded.
And Germans surrounded them. About 1,200,000 died back then, historically, in that maneuver. We probably will not be able to pull that off, but we could do a bit damage. And then we continue getting Western weapons, artillery, and other equipment, and keep shooting at them. And continue shooting them for a while till they cannot hold anymore, and then they retreat. And we celebrate the victory. So what will happen, I'm thinking, close to the second variant, but with elements of the first. So Russian army will succeed in pushing forward a bit on the eastern front and take some villages in some areas, and will likewise advance in some other parts of the front. So we'll be connected like this, completely exhausted. After that, what is important is who will bring support, who will bring their reserves first. If we bring first, they'll be closer to number 2, the second version that we described. If they bring more support, it might get closer to the first version, but I don't believe they can do that, because right now they do have the most ready battle group already engaged. So it probably would be something like, not 50-50, but more like 40-60 in our advantage. But you can remember that statement. Well, listen, we may miss details, but in general, we're usually correct. Well, see, as official representative of power, I cannot get too deep in the details. I have to brush with a broad brush to not give up anything classified. If I was representative from a different country, not from Ukraine, I would have a beautiful map on my wall, and I would be describing everything. I'd be saying, here it was difficult, look at this hill, there was a fight here, but we cannot do that. From what I hear back, our usual audience is happy with the data we provide, and unfortunately I cannot go much deeper into the details. About 320,000 people watching us. It's important for us to have more people from Russia. Can you tell us more about who is watching us from where? I actually put some stats on my Telegram channel from the last 28 days. The stat says as follows: 48%, a little less than that, from Ukraine, about 25-26% from Russia, and then the rest, Belarus, United States, Israel, other countries. So Russia, about 25-30%. Of course, we'd want more of them to watch us from Russia. And people think I ask them to link to this cast for my personal gains and stuff. No, I do want YouTube to promote our cast to more people. And when you leave a like, each like promotes it to 10 new people. I want us to be more popular than Konashenkov's statements. And like the problem with the serviceman who died on the cruiser Moscow. So I do not want Russians' audience to be the same as Natasha Rostova and Leo Tolstoy when she comes with big bright eyes and you know what she was doing and pretending that she doesn't know what's happening. So I do not want them to be uninformed. Those people who died on the ship, they need to know who died, how many of them were lost. Please share this cast, it will help us a lot. So, with the weapons supply, we keep coming back to that subject. You see the perspective pretty close. How does that correlate? How do these supplies correlate with the scenario currently unfolding on the front? We talked about Brits, about French, about Americans. There are so many statements that our holy obligation to not comment on their support at the beginning of the conflict, because all the Western media are screaming about what they're supplying. And so I guess we can discuss some of it. There is a lot of artillery, 150mm artillery, that is a long-range artillery. It shoots a little further, and also because of the components, it is a bit more accurate. And since our artillery is one of the best artillery schools, and Ukraine is one of the best in the world, that is a good tool to destroy the artillery of the enemy and to give more advantage to our troops for maneuver. Because all maneuvers can be possible when enemy artillery is suppressed. Offensive, retreating, and other operations are done when artillery is suppressed. So this tool will help. Brits gave us some Brimstone anti-ship missiles. Their distance is not too great, but they can provide significant defense to our shores. They're basically one of the main means to protect from shore offensives, so Russians cannot deploy their marines in our cities and shores. What else? Norwegians gave us some Mistrals. This is a portable anti-aircraft complex, similar to an Arrow 10 class. Doesn't tell much, but it's a good zenith weapon. So if all that, they're not saying tanks and armored vehicles yet in public. We do have some of the armored vehicles support from Australia. We got some tanks, probably getting from Europe. So, and Romania is supplying us some armored vehicles, so that wheel is starting to turn. And if everything comes and we manage to learn it, so somewhere close to, attention, 9th of May, Ukrainian side will get much more battlefield capabilities. And then we'll start to realize them in the field, because we'll not be standing and looking at things, doing nothing, and we'll be pushing forward. And that's where a Russian army, even if in the ideal situation they will take some part of the Eastern Front, they'll be pretty depleted by the end of this operation. And at that time, a very well-re-equipped Ukrainian side comes with the NATO weapons and says, "Good evening, we are from Ukraine," and starts to realize this advantage in all different ways, this way and that way. And it may happen so that it will not be Ukrainian mothers and wives waiting for messages from the Eastern Front, but it may be Russian wives and families waiting for news there. And they'll have to show how they can defend themselves. So far, on those few places where we could advance, their defense was not really good. So we'll have a good chance to see how they can do it on the whole front. Let's see, there is another problem here. If you start the counteroffensive and it has good chances, how do you do that in Kherson? It's a city where you have your own people. It's pretty simple. You do not have to attack the cities. You basically destroy the group, protecting it on the side, just smash everything they have there near the city, and then infantry will come through and clear whatever else is moving. You're not attacking the cities. No, we're not attacking our own cities. We are not fond of destroying our own things. We're not even using any artillery on even the smallest villages when they have up to 7 houses. We're not destroying that. But the enemy cannot stay in the city for too long. So they'll need to start sneaking out or want to connect to their troops or do something, and we'll be picking them one by one. So in Kherson, we don't even need to take it. We'll surround it, and those who will not have time to flee. Hello, Happy New Year, asshole. Sorry for my saying here, but yeah, that's a standard saying. So we'll get them there, and they can try to sneak from there and, use the little gesture of goodwill that they used in Kiev and retreat. I actually looked at their goodwill gesture when they left. Their fires were still warm. Their ashes of the fires were still warm when they killed all the civilians. So we'll see. What about Kharkiv and up north there? So Kharkiv is being attacked by these villains with artillery and reactive systems. Same thing as with Nikolaev that they're shooting. They're basically taking some of our reserves to hunt their artillery that is attacking those cities. But the thing is, they are not gauging us, right? Because we somehow managed to both hunt the artillery units that are attacking Kharkov or Nikolaev, and then also support our main troops, do our main tasks. So in the Kharkov area, our troops are actually still moving and advancing bit by bit. So this movement is going at some point to transfer to some mighty support for the events to follow the second variant that we described. So, okay, you're gauging the all Russian troops on the territory of Ukraine. Right now, about 90,000 on the territory of Ukraine and maybe 20,000 on the border, hiding in the bushes, sending letters home saying, "Mommy, Daddy, don't want to go there, it's kind of scary."
Quoting the dog of Baskerville, "Holmes, it is scary here. Can I please leave?"
So, 90,000 for that huge country. This is inadequate. Yeah, I do not understand that either. I have a lot of military analysts with very serious faces who are saying Arestovych is too optimistic. In reality, there are 3 waves of Russian support coming through, and they'll break through our troops and they'll not make these mistakes again, and we'll never be able to hold them. And I'm answering, look, the front from Kharkov to Kherson, and it's not just a straight line. It's about 700 kilometers. And for that, all 700 kilometers, okay, let's say 100,000 people, army. How many soldiers do we have? Let's take a calculator. Everybody can take a calculator and do that. 700 kilometers divided. No, the other way. My dad was not too strong in math. Again, wrong button, sorry. Alright, 100,000 divided by 700. Again, wrong button, sorry. Our viewers will be laughing. So, we have 142 soldier per kilometer of the front line. That is reinforced regiment for that size of the front. But that's if you spread them equally. However, if you do it proper with congregating more troops in the roads, intersections, train stations, some reserves, some 2 echelons in some important places. So that comes down to about 50 soldiers per mile, per kilometer. How long do you think they will hold it? And that's even if we don't get the NATO support. But that's not everything, Mark. There is a more serious problem here. There is nobody behind this line. Huge empty spaces. Not a single Russian soldier behind them. No block posts, no support, no second echelon of defense, because they're all gathered and lined up in the front. And the moment these operational reserves will be eaten, and they'll have nothing to defend with, a lot of interesting things start to happen there. Because if Ukrainian army will break through that line of defense, in big letters, they'll have nothing to stop us with. No reserves, no supply lines, additional defense lines, other cities that are defendable and being defended with troops, no helicopters to transport troops around. And that's the main part of the main function of helicopter. Troops carry and transports to move them around. And that's a big problem, that some of the professional officers were trying to impress on the high military command in Russia that this is an adventure bordering with fault, very faulty assumption. So when they reach that line, when they reach that breaking point, if we manage to break through that thin red line, Russian army may be in a very, very sad place after that. And, of course, behind that thin red line, there is Ukraine territory. Just imagine, from Kharkov to Kherson to Dnieper, all these 100,000 troops, they're all little blotches, a piece here, a piece here, a piece there. Between them, there's a lot of empty spaces. You can just walk through. So look, the last few days there was a micro-hysteria, not just among those propaganda machines on the TV, but among the people who are writing little papers and trying to pretend to be analysts. And they're now concentrated on doing different referendums about the support to the Russian power, because they start to be afraid of second fronts. What if in Tbilisi, in Georgia, something happens, or in Moldova, or Azerbaijan and Armenia? They're thinking partly that there was some activity there because of Russian group was being diluted or taken away from that area, because Russia did scoop everybody into Ukraine. So any second little front that might get opened in those republics might create additional chaos for Russian army. What if another little group decides to attack Pridnestrovia or take something else from Russia? I don't believe anybody there is eager, in Moldavia, is eager to take that land back. Same thing in Azerbaijan and Armenia. I do not believe they will be doing anything active. Of course, there's some pressure from Azerbaijan, but they do have general agreement up top, so that we should not be expecting serious moves with the knife in the back there. But it's sad, because they actually do have a good chance now to take their land back if they wanted to. So what about that region of Moldova that Russia took, Pridnestrovia? There's probably 1,000 troops with some basic guards protecting some of their equipment. And, of course, the army of Pridnestrovia, 18,000 of heroes, who are actually probably 11, who in reality are more like 6,000 or 7,000, who still playing army in the forest. Problem is the equipment is outdated, that don't work, and Russia was not supportive of them since 90s. They might have some armored vehicles that are much older than I am. So literally they have no power there. But there is such a thing as political will. Yeah, that's true. I have to agree with you. What about Belarus? Belarus is virginally clean and anything, but they will not fight with Ukraine. No, I'm not talking about them fighting with you, but about Lukashenko's position in that situation. I think Lukashenko already is eager to find some agreement with the West. At least I would be looking for that in his place, because he will not be in advantageous position if Putin wins. And if Putin's regime fails, he'll be really, really bad. He'll be in a bad position, bad place then. So he might want to get some guarantees or look for ways to get them. I don't think the West would just ask him to release his main political opponent's husband from prison and the other political leader, Tikhanovsky and Babaryka. I don't think that's enough for the West to give him any guarantees. But that's, for us, it's a faraway perspective. For now, we're interested to get more guns from the West so we can bring them to Kherson and say, good evening, we're from Ukraine. All right, we're 40 minutes live, 400,000 almost. Sons 3,000 are watching us. Anything else? Can I make a statement to Russian military? Guys, please spare us. You're advancing in such a way that me and Mark have to press some analytics out of your actions. Please do something so we would have something to discuss. Why so clumsy? That's the Russian word, right? Why are you doing it so clumsy? Or at least let our troops attack you. Because you're not attacking yourself and not really letting us to attack you yet. So we're hoping something will change. Or at least turn and leave, which is also a very valid option. Gauge your perspectives. Even if you heroically win over somebody on the Eastern Front, they'll put you to defend Dnieper and said, that's your new border, defend it, with about 50 people per kilometer. Good luck defending it, because in perspective there'll be several Ukrainian battalions coming to your position and saying, good evening. Well, I hope next day they'll perhaps do something. I'm also surprised. They promised us so much performance. The announce was so great. An old Russian saying, the swing for a ruble, the hit for a cent. And I do know what territory they have to, what terrain they have to face there in the south too. You can gather 25 armies there, but you'll have to send them through little capillaries, and you cannot really advance there too. So yeah, there is nothing to happen there. And I don't know what generals have promised Putin to give for the 9th of May. Maybe they promised to give Arestovych to Putin in person. But, theoretically they could have promised something. And if you've been real smart and played it right, they could have done some advancements and achieved certain things, but they're not. So you seriously think nothing happens? War is a complex thing. I mean, there are too many changing variables. Maybe we do some crazy, grave mistake, and some amazing Russian genius will notice it and do something. Or, I don't know, maybe just some weird flow of circumstances that may cause things, and our big mistake and their huge genius, they're not system factors that can influence the outcome of a big operation. Because to realize systemic advantages, you need systemic efforts. Unfortunately, Russian side is trying, but they're not capable of realizing that. Not with the current commanders they have. If they brought 1 million people, I could have said, yeah, that's something new, that's radically new. Maybe we can project some result to them. But 90 or 100,000? Mark, another note. For 1 million people, 20 years of Russia should have spent creating logistics to support them. Russia had never done that. They don't have logistics for 1 million people. The only thing they created is a force that they planned to take Ukraine or smash Ukraine in 3 days. But the moment they did not work, they have nothing to do. All right, 400,000. We've been for 44 minutes live. Your mic is good today. Yesterday I heard people cursing our cast, and some were sending needles under my fingers. Guys, I have to warn you, there'll be times when I'll have horrible microphone because I'll be in the places with real bad connection. But I know you're heroic and you'll continue watching us. All right, more interesting things coming. Do not miss our cast tomorrow, 10 p.m. Me and Alexey will talk about news tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Please subscribe to our channels, guys, Feigin Live and Alexey Arestovych, and share these links. Side note, if you're watching it in English, subscribe to Privateer Station. Good night, everybody.